Welcome to the Lived Experience podcast, where we dive deep into the narratives that shape our lives. I'm your host, Dr. Tamia Ryan, and today's episode is a special exploration of the art of storytelling. And this is our first episode of the podcast, so I'm excited to have Nate Taylor joining us. Today, we're going to discuss the power of storytelling and its ability to connect us, inspire us, and remind us that we're never alone in our journey of self discovery. We'll tap into how to stay true to our story, embrace our uniqueness, and continue to shine bright. Nate is a special talent originally from New York, but has traveled and lived various places and has left his mark in every corner that he's touched. He's a writer, poet, actor. He's even done some modeling on the side, and his creative energy knows no bounds. He has Poetry Slam awards. He's had roles in independent films and commercials. And I'm excited to have Nate joining me today as he opens up about his lived experiences and overcoming challenges to embracing a newfound purpose. So thank you so much, Nate, for joining me today and being my first guest. I'm excited to have you on and for
I
taking
appreciate,
time out of your schedule.
I appreciate you inviting me. Thank you.
Sure. So let's just dive right into it. Can you tell me a little bit about your background and your experiences as a writer, poet, and actor? And how have these roles really helped shape your artistic journey?
So I started out when I was young writing short stories. I remember when I was, man, it was so long ago, probably like in third or fourth grade, I used to write a lot of short stories, like horror stories, and it got kind of popular in my class where a lot of my fellow students would, want me to put them in the story and like kill them off, whatever character I had, that was the villain of that story. As I got older, I started to, expand my short stories and write about, different narratives, different and have different subjects. Put my stories a lot in contests, lost some, won some, and it basically transferred into me actually doing poetry and spoken word, where I would get up before someone and just share my thoughts. Something I've written, that might have dealt with a part of my life that was very intricate to who I was shaping to become. So from poetry, it did lead to me doing acting, and I never thought I'd be an actor. I kind of thought that I would just continuously do poetry and keep traveling, doing spoken word from the east to the west and so on and so forth. I got a passion for acting from a friend of mine who gave me like a flyer about some audition that was going on in the city I was in at the time. Didn't really think that I would get the role, but I went and audition. I didn't get the role, but it did spark a passion in me, and then I continued, going on auditions until I was landing roles in certain commercials and independent films. So how it has shaped me, I just think that my whole journey as being an artist stems from my grandmother. My grandmother, who was very important to me. She's the one that kind of named me or gave me the name that I used to go by as a poet, which was the gift. My name Nate means the gift is God given in Hebrew. And my grandma gave me that because my grandma's the one that named me Nate. And, she's always saying to me that I was a gift to her, hence the Hebrew meaning. And that kind of always stuck with me, throughout my life. And it led to me, like I said, doing poetry and it expanded just my artistic talent. So
Thank you for sharing that. So it really sounds like every piece of your artwork really builds upon each other. So writing, turning into poetry, performing spoken word, and then leading into acting. Can you
yes,
share a story about your own life that's had a significant impact on you?
I know I had a friend of mine. This just happened a lot of years ago, which kind of shaped even how I wrote my poetry. She had some, basically she was dealing with mental illness. It's something that honestly, I know her for so many years and didn't know she was even dealing with it. She kind of kept it a secret. I kind of didn't learn about it until she committed suicide. And as I thought about it and about the time we spent together, I started realizing that she was kind of giving me hints that she was looking for help, looking for kind of like reaching out and looking for someone to talk to. And I felt bad because I felt like I was never catching the hint, and for some reason she wasn't confident enough to just come out and say it. So after she passed away, it just kind of like I actually created a story about her called Shattered Dreams, which talks about some of her life. I made it. It's a fictional story, but I added some of her real life stories or some of her real life tragedy in there in the story Shattered Dream. But it really shaped me and who I became as a poet and as an artist because it really made me feel like in my poetry that I need to tell real stories, if not about others, about myself, that can possibly, help other people. So yeah.
And I believe that our stories, I've always felt this way, our stories really have a healing power. So not only is it a way for us to almost a sort of therapy to work through things, but it also can really inspire others as well. When you think about your creative process and merging sort of storytelling and poetry, can you talk a little bit about your creative process when you are writing?
Kind of what I said before a little bit. I mean, I kind of just take parts of my life or parts of others and just use it to, spread a message, that hopefully people that are going through the same thing, like if they're going through drug addiction, if they're going through mental illness, some type of physical or emotional abuse, I'm hoping that, through me telling the story of, say when my story Shattered Dream or my poem Shattered Dream, I was talking about, a character named Mahogany who, went through, the things that she went through far as like she got molested by her brother and how her father rejected her and how her mom was never there for her. It caused her to go down this spiral of, drug addiction and prostitution, which ultimately kind of, led to her, her death. And like I said, it was not many people that she could reach out to really like intervene to help her, from, her ultimate tragedy, me being one of them, unfortunately.
We're actually going to take a break here and listen to the poem written by Nate Taylor called Shattered Dreams.
When I was young, I knew a girl named Mahogany. Her life was no paradise. She lived in Hades, 2 blocks down from me on a street called Purgatory. And every night religiously around 2:45, she would drop to her knees and pray to God to set her free, feeling the devil pulling at her heartstrings and suicidal dreams. Contemplating death but holding on to life. Holding on to the crucifix of Christ, repeating Psalms 23 twice. Hoping her prayers will suffice. Hoping her prayers will keep on the lights as streaks of blood and sweat stained her pajama sets. As her older brother crept in her room and violated her body while she slept. With his hand over her mouth, he told her she screamed he'd break her neck. Yet every time he raped Mahogany, he was killing her slowly while she wept. So she asked herself what's left when pain was associated with every breath. Her life a house of horrors, her dad been gone since she was 4, and her mom was a drunken whore who stole prescription drugs at the pharmacy at the corner store. And I know what the Bible says, and the gates of hell should not prevail. But Mahogany eventually became an empty shell, a withering corpse. His blood mixed with saline fluid flooded her tear ducts. Her cries frail like moth wings as her eyes depicted a shame seen in females with crack-addicted offsprings. Her mind broken, torn at the seams, living a normal adolescence, nothing more but a shattered dream. And we were barely 16 when I realized life isn't what it seems. Saw Mahogany on the strip, dope in her veins, needles in her jeans. Her eyes are bloodshot red like the color of crimson. Her face validated her mission through unpleasant disposition as her admirers labor her horror according to her attire, while her hips shifted sexually to the silhouette of gunfire. Aimed at the consumers and buyers of flesh, those who committed incest and the vile pedophiles getting little boys and girls undressed. She was a single bloodstain smeared over a rough canvas and hung in a crooked frame in a messed up world. But I still remember that pretty little girl who used to sneak out of her house to play with me, wearing her mom's shiny pearls. But at that moment, all I could do was hold her, while she cried profusely on my shoulder, hoping time would mold her and show her love as her years grew older. But unfortunately, in the summer of '93, I heard that Mahogany had OD'd, found dead in her bathroom with a needle discarded by her feet. A tragedy that shattered my thoughts and scattered my heart in the wind like debris. So until death comes for me, I will always remember that when I was young, I knew a girl named Mahogany. Her life was no paradise. She lived in Hades, 2 blocks down from me on a street called Purgatory. And every night religiously around 2:45, she would drop to her knees and pray to God to set her free.
So, I try to use her life and, as a way of trying to, deter people from having the same fate as her, as I should say.
So really sharing a message, even if you're not telling your personal story, but really being able to articulate others' stories and spread that message. And I can imagine that even though now you're into acting, which we'll get back into more into detail in a minute, that now you're working with other people's stories. Would you say that there's any similarities or differences in really moving from you being the writer to now you're in an acting role?
Well, yeah, I mean, definitely some differences because some of the characters I've played, I've or some of the characters I played, they went through things I've never went through. And it's something as simple as, I played a character where I was like, I played a character where I was like a drug dealer. I've never been a drug dealer before in my life. I played a character one time where, the character was dealing with PTSD. He was like a war veteran. I've never been to war before. So really having to get into the get that kind of mind state and get into the mentality of that person that has been through some type of that's been through war, that's dealing with PTSD, now has to come home to, back to his family, having to come back to being a regular civilian, and having to deal with all that, and basically, live, life all over again and kind of retrain themselves to not always have their head on a swivel because they think they might get shot, because they're in a war torn country or whatever. It's definitely a difference, creating a story and now becoming a character in that story and having to deal with situations that I've never dealt with, so.
And I'd like to go back to something you mentioned in your intro when you were sharing your story about how you started pursuing acting. And one thing that really stuck out with me is that you said you didn't get the role, you didn't get the job that you went out for,
Right.
but you continued on. Can you talk a little bit about through your journey how maybe disappointments or things have not worked out, perhaps how you envisioned initially, but how you were able to continue to move on through this journey and in your newfound purpose?
Well, I feel like only way you're going to be able to move forward, especially when you're dealing with obstacles, is to have a passion for it. Like if you truly have a passion for something, like this is something I want to do, this is something that God made me to do, you're not going to allow the closed doors or the obstacles to get in your way. You're going to step over the obstacles. You're going to look for that open door when all the other doors are closed. And also too, just being mature about the situation. I think some people treat certain passions they have with immaturity, like, okay, well, I want to become an actor. Well, if I want to be a professional working actor, I got to know there's going to be a lot of no's before I get any yeses. I'm going to hear a lot of no. If you don't come in with that kind of mentality that you're going to have to deal with failure, then when you deal with failure, you're just going to crumble and be like, and you're not going to, even try to go forth and succeed in that career. And to me, there are people who really didn't have a passion for that. Because like I said, you have a passion for it, you're definitely you're gonna deal with it with a mature mind state. You're gonna know that it's gonna be a lot of closed doors until you get to that one open door. And your passion itself and your desire to want to succeed in that career is gonna drive you to keep going forward. So yeah.
And there's a lot of risk associated with it too when you're really pursuing what your passion is. I know myself, I've picked up and moved, and those that know me know I've lived different places, tried different jobs, different opportunities. And there is a level of risk, which can be a little bit scary sometimes when you are really pursuing your goals. How did you balance that risk with the drive of saying, I'm still going to go ahead and do this?
I guess just taking it day by day and just like keeping that finish line in front of me and just saying, okay, I'm gonna still deal with, I'm gonna make it, I'm gonna succeed in what I want to do. I've had situations, where my money wasn't right. I may not have been able to take that acting class that I wanted to. I may not, have got that internship for school that I wanted to that could have helped my career. I've had death in the family, it's things that, that happen and risks that are associated with the fact that I could do all this, God forbid I could do all this and nothing comes of it. But just believing in yourself, and not listen to outside entities, and just believe in God and believing that that if God has you on this path and this is what God has you to do, you're going to succeed in it. So
I think what's important is that we always remember that we are creating our own stories. We are behind our own narratives. And so sometimes we're living out the narratives that other people have written for us, or we feel that we should be following. And so when we are really sort of tapping into our purpose, our passion of what we want to do, that might be the total opposite of what others are telling us to do or what we've been hearing our whole lives, what our parents want us to do or friends. And so I think sometimes just overcoming that fear is really important. And one of the reasons that I wanted to have you on today, especially as our first guest, was to really talk about, and as you shared your story of, experiencing failure but allowing that to really fuel you to continue to work harder. How has that impacted the way that you do write, experiencing perhaps disappointments or experiencing challenges?
I feel like it's made me stronger. If you don't experience challenges, if you don't fail, you're not gonna become. It's not gonna. You're not gonna become better at what you're meant to do. I feel like I've created stories out of my failure. I've created stories out of the challenges that I've dealt with. I just feel like it's just like you got to be tested through the fire, to come out and be a diamond. So if you don't go through no challenges, you don't go through any kind of failures. How do you create stories as a writer? How do you be able to, relate to the people that you're writing to? Because the people you're writing to have dealt with failure. They've dealt with challenges. And if you haven't, that kind of, doesn't make you very relatable to the people that you're even, writing to.
How have you used social media? Because now social media is the thing, and everyone is using it, whether you want to or not. You have usually some interaction with social media. But how do you think technology and social media has changed the way that we not only tell stories, but in the way that we consume stories?
Um, I think it's made it easier. There's such a flood of information these days. I think that social media has definitely helped, you as a writer to be able to access, certain things. Like say if you're writing a story, if you're writing a novel or if you're writing a short film, if you need to know certain information about a certain place or information about a certain character, you can easily get it off of social media. I think social media can also inspire you, and your storytelling as well. It might be, you might be creating some type of content and might see something on social media that might, add to what you're already creating, and make it a better story. Um, I feel like social media can also, of course, be distracting, and it can also give you some false information. You got to make sure you definitely double check, information you get on social media, because you might be writing some type of biography or true document about somebody and get some information on social media, and then it's false, and then that will definitely not make your story a bestseller. Someone read it and be like, oh, that's not true. So you definitely need to fact check when you're dealing with social media. But yeah, social media, it's like, it's like a blessing and a curse. It has its good things, has its bad things. So yeah.
I agree. And I think it's just a balance to it because I've seen you perform doing spoken word, doing poetry. And there's always like that experience when you're live there and you're experiencing it. Whereas it's great that we can tap in and see all these things that are happening around the world. But it's nice to be able to experience and have those interactions in person as well. So just, I think balancing it out
Great.
is really what's helpful. Can you share a little bit about any upcoming projects or what are you currently working on? What are you into right now?
Well, right now, they're doing a movie in Ohio. It's a superhero movie. I have a part in that. It's not like a really a major part. I just played, as far as the villain, I just played one of his right hand men in the story. And I just helped drive the narrative of the story along with the lead actor. I'm also part of the 48-hour film project. It's a statewide project. It's in every major city. New York, there's a New York film 48-hour film project. Chicago, there's a Chicago 48 film project. And basically, it's a project where you have to register by a certain time. You go to the Kickstarter, and that's when you find out your genre. And you literally have 3 days to write the script, film it, and also edit it and send it back to them. So it's definitely you're on a time crunch. And yeah. So I really hope I get horror or drama, that I think I rate best with them two genres. But if I get some other genre like crime or comedy, I'm gonna have to just work with it. I just feel like comedy is kind of subjective. So what I might think is funny, other people may not think it's funny, but whatever. Well, I had went an internship for Channel 8 News. So I'm waiting to hear back for them for my interview. I have a couple other projects going on for September. But for right now, them projects I just mentioned, or that internship is going to happen very soon. So yeah.
And where can people find you? Where can people check out your stuff? Where can they look you up online? And we'll put that information
You
in the description as well.
okay? Yeah. So on YouTube, you can look me under I am Nate Taylor on YouTube. My Instagram is NateTaylor_actor. My Facebook is Nate. It's just Nate Taylor, which is my first last name. But if you put like Nate Taylor actor or Nate Taylor poet, I should come right up.
All right. Is there anything you would like to leave the audience with in just terms of going out on your journey, taking risks, seeking your purpose?
I mean, I just encourage people just to, don't listen to the outside entities. If you want to do something, do it, and be your original self. Don't let people change you into, they think you should be. Don't listen to society, and have society change you into what society says you should be. Be who you want to be and, do what you want to do, whatever that is. But if you believe it and you go and do what you got to do to succeed in that dream, the sky's the limit. So
Well, thank you for spending some time with me today and talking and sharing your story. And just a reminder to those listening that, again, we are the narrators of our stories and we can always rewrite our chapters. We can create new chapters, new books. The saga continues. So don't limit yourself and please stay tuned. We have more episodes that are on the way. And thank you again, Nate, for joining me today. And I hope to have you back again soon.
awesome. Thank you for having me.